What would happen if the world lost oxygen for 5 seconds? Air is unseen but felt at its best when our bodies are working right, our cars are moving and pretty much everything is functioning great, right? But what would happen if the world lost oxygen for 5 seconds? What if you wouldn't breathe in for that short while? And what would happen if all the substances on Earth were limited this supply for that time limit? Here is the list of the things that would start happening right after this good air has been lost. Number 1. All the oceans and sea would evaporate out. There is an air composition that exists in most large water bodies. The amount of oxygen comes in at 33% while that of hydrogen covers the rest. And note that oxygen covers the upper part, close to us, and then hydrogen goes after it. So right after the oxygen has been removed, the hydrogen remaining will slowly loosen itself up in the air in the form of evaporation. And this would then have all the water in the seas and oceans disappearing. And I am sure you can imagine what will follow when there is no sea or oceans. No traveling by sea, or in ships. All the killer sharks, whales, and sea life, dead. Number 2. Beach enthusiasts would get their skin burned by the sun. Oxygen is what keeps away the harmful ultraviolet rays from hitting the part of the atmosphere which we live in, and this will simply expose us to the rays when it is all gone. Those who will be at the beach will get massive sunburn and be put at risk of getting cancer, as the UV rays come with that huge risk. For white folks, as well as their brothers, the light-skinned guys would have to run away from the sun if they want to survive the cancerous risks on the loose. Have you ever felt what it feels like in the toaster? Well, we will be feeling the same kind of heat when in the sun without oxygen. Number 3. The light in the sky would fail during the day. Oxygen also does make up for the widespread rays of the sun. See, when the sun shines, the light it releases to the earth is usually reflected. There are small particles of oxygen, dust and other impure substances that help this reflection to take place and make the rays penetrate all parts of the world. When oxygen was to be sucked off from the earth, there will slight darkness in the sky as there is little reflection, and the sun's position would be clear to everyone. Number 4. Cars that rely on fuel would be useless. All cars except for the newly made cars that function on electronic means would stop working. The fuel we feed those cars is needed for the combustion that takes place in the engine. Now without that oxygen to make the fuel burn, no combustion will be there. And with no combustion, the good luxurious cars that depend on diesel would have to remain in the parking. Number 5. All buildings made of concrete material will come down. Oxygen is what holds the concrete together in all buildings, small or huge. And when it is taken away, all the firmness and rigidity will no longer exist, and this will bring them down one by one till there is nothing left there. 5 seconds is a very long time without oxygen in such buildings. This means there would be huge numbers of people dead, and a whole lot of breaking news as well. Number 6. All metals that are not treated will be bound to each other. When there is no oxygen, the oxidation layer that coats each piece of metal will not be there. Since metals that are not treated are able to be welded into each other, these metals will be bound to each other, which would be very disastrous to the people who weld and treat them. Number 7. The Earth's crust would come tumbling down. The crust of the Earth is constituted by 45% of this much-needed oxygen. If it would be lost, this means in a few seconds, all the crust would be complete dust, which means all over us on the surface of the Earth would sink in. Number 8. We would lose our sense of hearing. Oxygen is what helps our ears be able to balance off the air pressure and the changes in the conditions of our environment. When oxygen is no more, our ears won't be able to stabilize this aspect, which will probably make us lose our hearing and become deaf.